Batman Resurrection Prologue. So much to do in so little time. Part 1. There's got to be a better way to read a map. Carlo Babiche lowered his map and squinted up at the street sign, barely visible. Someone had knocked out the street light or shot it out. In this neighborhood, there was no telling. The sun was about to set, but nobody on this part of Gotham City ever laid eyes on it after 3 anyway. The buildings were too small, too tall. Carlo had moved to the city years ago and still had never gotten his bearings. It was worse when he was in a hurry, like now. Cyber or Culver and Klebs, but which way was Klebs as Culver? A beer truck whizzed past, splashing water puddled by the afternoon sun. It soaked Carlo and Map alike. Thanks, pal. Angrily, he shook his crumpled sheet. There's got to be a better way to find an address. He glimpsed at his watch. 2 hours to showtime. He had to ask someone, preferably a cop, but the last time one of those had been in this neighborhood, he was probably riding a horse. And Carlo didn't think it was smart to ask one when he was headed to make a deal with what could be a there. Carlo spotted what he was looking for ahead and threw the map to the ground. One more piece of litter wasn't going to make a difference here, and time was wasting. He dashed toward the corner. Cobra was barely an alley in either direction. Another choice, but a simple one. He picked up the dangerous looking one and hurried down it. A curly haired man emerged from a doorway without a door. Where's the fire? Carlo stopped cold, and without thinking, took a step back. Someone might not have. The punk wore a dirty cap and a single earring. Was it a tooth, a claw, or a white bandana? He didn't appear to be armed. Carlo was taller and bulkier, and he wasn't wired for violence, not the real kind anyway. And around here, it was safe to assume this character wasn't alone. He wasn't. Though the individual who emerged next from the doorway was even less imposing. A scrawny guy in a neck brace carrying a gym bag. He saw Carlo and turned immediately to go back inside. The first punk barked at him. Get back here, Eddie. Hearing the name, Carlo reached into his pocket and produced a crumpled sheet of paper. I'm looking for Eddie, and are you Nick? Guilty, the earring guy said. One of the mawkish Eddie reappearance. Nick sized Carlo up. You don't look like you're in the market for what we've got. You a cop? What? Carlos looked around, flustered. No. Then who sent you? I called the number. Carlo opened the sheet. There it was. There it was, a flyer. Nick smiled at Eddie. You see, advertising works. His injured partner stammered a response. Yeah, at advertising. It was the first peep that Carlo heard from Eddie, and it was drowned out by a loud mechanical clang from somewhere up the street. Eddie nearly jumped out of his shoes in response. His bloodshot eyes darted in one direction and then in another. Carlo was befuddled. The person had spoken to on the phone had significant has specified this meeting place, but Eddie seemed more frightened of the area than he was. Is he all right? Nick shrugged. Don't mind him. Somebody put him in the hospital. But, Eddie stammered almost involuntarily. Nick spun and clasped his hand over Eddie's mouth. Don't say it. We don't say that word. Don't say what? Carlo asked. Don't mind him. He hallucinates. Nick gripped Eddie's scratchy face more tightly. Now shut up. Shut up. The smaller man squirmed but went silent. But as soon as Nick released him and faced Carlo, Eddie blurted out, "Batman! Where?" Nick said, just as Jumpy, realizing no one was about, he let out a deep breath. Carlo looked from one punk to the other. What, you met Batman for real? Carlo calmed down. Yeah, attacked us both. Cops tried to get us on armed robbery, but they couldn't hold us. Carlo found that hard to believe. He'd assumed Batman was just another stunt to sell newspapers. Nobody ever taken a picture of him, but it didn't matter. Carlo looked down at the gym bag. He reached toward it. Is that it? I need it bad. Nick waved him off. Wait, hold on. Gonna need to see some cash here. Carlos started to go for his wallet, only to flinch. I'm not sure. Relax, Nick said. We ain't gonna steal your money. We don't do that no more. No, no more, Eddie said. We're honest bit. He spent another 10 seconds on the word businessman, long enough to drive Nick to the station, or drive Nick to distraction. Give me that, Nick said, yanking the gym bag away from his partner. He pivoted toward a garbage, one that still had a lid. That served as a makeshift counter as he unzipped the bag. Take a look at at this merch. But if you say no, we've got a dozen other buyers. Carlos stepped over and looked inside. He couldn't believe it. This is the good stuff? You bet. Carlo reached inside and pulled out a container after a container, squinting at them in waning light. Lipstick tubes, boxes of mustache and hair dyes, blusher compacts. This is amazing. What did you do? Clean out a perfume counter? Eddie squeaked a response. No! He moved toward, trying to appeal to Carlo. We didn't take nothing. Quiet, Nick shoved Eddie away from looking back at Carlo and the goods. What's it to you how we got it? What's important is where we got it. Every bit of it imported. From out of the state, good, for Carlo thought. Out of the country is better. 1 week ago, a crazed character called the Joker has started tainting consumer products with something bad, Smilix. He called it and said it did things to people. Carlo didn't understand how it worked. He was years past his last science class and he did lousy in those anyway. Whatever it was caused seizures accompanied by uncontrollable laughter before freezing facial muscles into a smiling rictus at the moment of death. Carlo hadn't been watching when a broadcaster had died on air from exposure, but neither good taste nor respect for the lost colleague had prevented the Action News from rerunning the footage again and again. It had spent it had sent Gothamites into a full-fledged panic, but where others were searching for answers, Gotham's Gotham's shopping nightmare, to use the term a beleaguered newscaster had used just an hour ago. Carlo was simply searching for cosmetics that could be trusted, and he wasn't sure about these that look that and he wasn't sure about these. He looked at one of them after another. A lot of it was innate unlabeled. Safe stuff's impossible to get. How did you We get it from a guy who knows a guy, Nick replied. Dude said he had a truck from Central City. That was reasonably far away, Carlos thought. Selling makeup isn't illegal. Why did you ask if I was a cop? Again with the questions, Nick yanked as they yanked the bag and closed it. Eddie piped up. It's not the stolen. Don't say that. Nick whipped off his cap and struck Eddie with it. I told you to stop saying that. He put his hat back on and glared at Carlo. We're on the straight and narrow now. Do you want any of this stuff or not? Carlo looked at his watch. Time was running out, and he decided he didn't much matter whether the goods were stolen. He reached into his jacket pocket and brought out his wallet. How much for all of it? Nick sneered. All of it? You can't even afford. He stopped when Carlo opened the wallet, revealing a lot of cash. Nick brightened. And you thought we robbed somebody. It's not mine. I'm buying it for someone else. How much? Nick smiled in a quivering. Nick smiled at a quivering Eddie before looking back. Let me see. He reached unthreateningly for Carlo's wallet and counted. Yeah, all this should cover it. That's crazy. It's a seller's market, pal. Carlo thought for a moment and looked at the darkening shadows in the street. Leave me a 20. Mark thought about it and plucked a 20 out to put in Carlo's hand, and Carlo eagerly leaned over to grab the bag. Nick chucked the empty wallet into it. Guess the wife needs her eyeshadow, he said, but you ain't gonna be able to take her someplace nice on a 20. I'm not married, Carlos said, rising. I need to get a cab if I can find one. He turned and ran to the street. There was still time.